Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hyggen has been the mayor of our wonderful city for just over a year now, and a lot has transpired in Lethbridge over the past year that has affected so many people here in our city. Now, to talk about this in more detail is Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hyggen, who joins us for our Year in Review interview. Mayor Hyggen, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, Blaine, let's talk about the 5.1% tax increase for each of the next 4 years. Many in our city are not happy about it, especially considering just a few short years ago was what, 1.82%? Why the large increase?
Yes. It was 1.82, and then the last 3 years have been 0.00. And as we're all aware, unfortunately, the inflation has definitely it creeps up to sometimes over 10%. And so in order to keep with some of the inflation, we knew that we just could not keep it at a 0%. Furthermore, a lot of the different things that were discussed in our council action plan, one being one of the most important things was policing in our community. And of course, that comes at a cost. And so that was a big part of this budget was the policing as well. So yeah, there was going to be an increase, not saying that we can't look for efficiencies or reopen the budget if needs to be in the future, as we did when we dropped it to 0%. So but currently, yes, it's not easy to take, and I understand that as well, as I'm a property owner as well as a commercial property owner, which is considerably more than residential. So it's not easy, but it's something that needed to be done.
Now, you campaigned on that. I remember when you and I talked about $1 million that was taken out of the police budget. We want to put it back in. Let's talk about the importance of more boots on the ground with the police here in our city. How important is that for you?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question, Hal. It's extremely important. Again, it's something that our community has especially during the campaign trail and before that, and even now, it's the importance of having police within our community and the boots on the ground. And it wasn't as much of a, I guess the reduction was definitely a struggle for sure, but it's adding additional resources, and it's civilian staff as well to be able to do some of that paperwork. We found ourselves in a situation. We were told that a lot of the police find themselves doing paperwork for sometimes the majority of the shift, which is tough to get those boots on the ground if they're doing the paperwork. So trying to find the resources to be able to help them with that paperwork so that they could be on the street. But not only that, then we're going to add additional police officers. But in saying that, it does take a little bit of time because of the training and stuff that is involved. But we will see more staff on the streets, more police officers on the streets in the future for sure.
Now, how's the watch been helping out? Has that been quite a help as well in the city?
Absolutely, it does. It's the eyes and ears on a lot of times throughout our downtown core, especially, and it has helped the police be able to do their job. And furthermore, and to guide and steer those the residents and those that are many that are struggling with addiction on our streets to the resources that they need to get to a more sober state.
Now, I'm glad you brought that up, actually, Blaine. Let's talk about how the city's been looking for a sober and safe shelter for many of our most vulnerable here in the city. The old Civic Center Arena was originally looked at, but now you're looking at other potential options?
Absolutely. It was, there's not many areas that are zoned and would need to be rezoned for shelter purposes. And that was one in particular that we were looking at. And so the community engagement that we had is just, we want to make sure we reach out to the community. And that was one thing that we all really focus on in our council action plan, is to listen to the community before making any decisions. And so we had multiple different engagement sessions. And throughout those sessions, we'd heard that maybe was not the right location for it. And I know it's tough because out there we do need a location. It's just sometimes NIMBYism comes into effect, and I'll be very honest with you. Nobody wants an area like this, or not many people want one close by their home. But it's something that is definitely needed within our community. So we'll continue to look at different areas.
Now, Lethbridge City Council recently voted 5-3 to allocate $325,000 towards an overnight comfort center at Streets Alive. It's a combination of both municipal and federal funding. Now, you were one of the three who voted against the motion and the funding. Why is that?
Okay, so for one thing, I wanted to make sure, and I do let people know on a regular basis since that vote here and before, I support Streets Alive in the work that they do. They do an incredible work throughout our community. The concern was, again, from business owners and stuff in the downtown core, similar to what I mentioned before with the shelter. There's been some incredible vagrancy that's going around the area where this warming shelter is taking place, and so I'm happy to hear that there's going to be additional security and additional measures put in place there. But it's something, and I spent many hours with the businesses downtown, and the calls were off the charts here with concerns that they had felt over the past week since this was implemented. So I just wanted to make sure that those concerns are addressed, and it's my understanding they will be, and we'll continue to monitor that.
Now, the final results for the Lethbridge 2022 point and time count indicate that around 454 people experienced homelessness as of September 27th. Now, in 2018, the Lethbridge PIT count, I believe, was around 223. Blaine, so what's the plan moving forward to really address the homeless issues here in the Windy City?
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest things. And I'll be very honest, this last year, it has been one of the main challenges that council is working on. And I know myself, it's a day in, day out, and a majority of the time is spent on some of these social issues that we have within our community. And, the homelessness is something that we need to address. We need to work with our provincial and federal partners because it's a mandate of those other levels of government, although those members those folks that are within our community are homeless. We do need to look for the grant funding, et cetera, that comes from other levels of government, and as it's their mandate for housing within our community. And so I know that those lines are great at times, but we need to understand that is a provincial and a federal mandate. And so we want to be able to make sure we work with those partners and look for solutions going current and into the future.
Yeah, solutions. I mean, with the homeless issue, we had a lot of the tent encampments set up around the city, and especially if the weather's going to warm up again, we may see more of that. What's the City Council's plan on addressing that situation should we see more of these tent encampments pop up? I mean, we have to show compassion, right, at the same time.
Absolutely. You need to show compassion, and it's tough because, again, some of these encampments bring some crime to the area, and those residences that are around where the encampments were set up were struggling, and I met with many of them, and I feel their concerns, and so that does need to be addressed, similar to that of housing within our community. We'll continue to advocate to the provincial government and for grants and other forms of funding to be able to address this concern.
Having Nathan Neudorf here, I mean, he was an MLA before, but now he's Deputy Premier, Infrastructure Minister. Do you think maybe that'll help bring some more dollars to our city to address some of the homeless issues, maybe create more affordable housing?
I would love to see that. Let's be honest. Of course, I would hope that any MLA would have that same pull. But having MLA Neudorf as Deputy Premier and of course in Minister of Infrastructure is great. He sees the concerns that we have in the community because he's from this community. And so I know we're working currently on a water and wastewater strategy and working with him directly. And I've sat down on numerous occasions on how we can move that forward so that we can invite more business and industry into our community, as we're almost maxed out with our water and wastewater. And so we do need some dollars and funding from the provincial government to be able to expand those services.
Now, a number of those in our city were not happy with the fact in the news that Flair Airlines will not be doing a Lethbridge to Tucson flight until next December. It had something to do with what? Supply chain issues and Flair not having a ramp to load passengers onto their planes? Or Blaine, let me ask you something. Was it more to do with the fact that our airport maybe cannot accommodate enough people, enough of the passengers?
No, it is the first, for sure, the prior, Hal. It's and no one is I'm sure more upset than I am. I was on that inaugural flight and I was quite excited till a week before that to be able to take off on that first flight down to Arizona. And definitely supply chain issue. We've been in conversation with Flair Airlines, and they're not pulling out of Lethbridge, but due to supply chain issues, it is delayed till next year. And so we look forward for the opportunity to have them in when that supply chain issue is remedied.
Let's flesh out what we discussed earlier about that working relationship with the province and how vital that is, especially when it comes to funding to help for the needs in our area here. Now, you've been working with the province to try and attract more doctors here to our city. How successful have you been so far?
Actually, we've been extremely successful. And again, that's a mandate of the provincial government, but the many citizens throughout our community do not have a doctor. And so I've spent many hours and days up in Edmonton and with my colleagues here in Lethbridge from AHS and discussing these concerns. And we do have 17 doctors that are starting before spring of next year. Some have already started here in Lethbridge. So this is exciting news because it's one of the things that we all heard on the campaign trail and over the past few years is the doctor shortage. But to understand the doctor shortage just isn't in Lethbridge, it is all over. So in order to compete with these other markets, to get these doctors here, it's a challenge at times, but we've been able to secure these 17 doctors and we're looking forward to welcome them to our community.
Yeah, some of the physicians we've reached out to who consider moving here, they say they Google Lethbridge and they see all of the crime stats come up. They're like, whoa, and that's what scares them about moving to their city. But they don't understand about how close we are to Waterton Lakes National Park and all the beauty with the coulees that we have here. And if you look at it big picture, it's still a fairly safe city if you look at a lot of the stats.
Exactly. This is regional areas when we get some of these stats. And so Lethbridge, I feel very safe in Lethbridge. And we do have a lot of doctors that have that opportunity to reach out on a regular basis to their colleagues. And you know what? It is a very safe place. And you know, when we look at the community satisfaction survey of 90% of the residents in Lethbridge rate their life quality of life is good or better, that's important. And that's something that really resonates and hits home to us as council. And it should to most other residents that when you have a satisfaction survey come back at 90%, that's good to hear. So I think we're on the right track, Hal. And I know some of these things, there's challenges that we'll face on a regular basis, but as any community does, but I know that we're doing what we can to better our community for sure.
Let's talk about your first year in office as mayor. What were some of the biggest highlights and maybe some of the biggest challenges for you?
Well, some of the highlights, gosh, I'll start off with going back to February, early this year, when the pandemic was just lightening up. I won't say that the pandemic goes away, but it was the opportunity, some of the restrictions were coming off. And as a matter of fact, a week before the Briar is about when the restrictions were lifted. And we had the first event that was open to the public, and it was mask free, and the concessions were open. And it's something that really did a great service for our community having the Briar, because of course you book these events years and years out without the idea of a pandemic coming forward, right? But I know that the businesses that were struggled through the pandemic, and not the only ones that struggled, but the service industry, so the hotels and the restaurants were really struggled through the pandemic. So we couldn't find a hotel that had space open. Restaurants were booked solid. You couldn't get a reservation sometimes because of that event. And so it was a great economic driver and a really boost to furthermore to the economy with coming out of COVID. So seeing people's faces and enjoying an event that is, we've hosted all 5 of the major curling events, and the Briar being kind of the best of them all, I guess we'll say, because it's something that everybody really likes to attend if you're a curling fan. And so it was great to be able to host all of those. And we've heard nothing but great reviews from those that have put this on by mentioning the volunteerism. How the volunteerism, as you are well aware, in Lethbridge is second to none. We have incredible community support here, and volunteers are there when we need them.
Yeah, I remember covering the 88 Winter Olympics in Calgary, and without the volunteers, it wouldn't have been the huge success that it was. Blaine, we have one of the largest reserves in all of Canada, located not far from us with the Blackfoot Confederacy. Let's talk about new initiatives we can look forward to as we continue to build toward reconciliation with the Blood Tribe.
Thank you for that, Hal. And to add into the last year, some of the great things that have happened. I know I mentioned the Briar, but one of the top things as well that we were able to set up was a intergovernmental health table. And so that includes representation from the Blood Tribe Department of Health, the Alberta Health Services, City of Lethbridge, many provincial ministers, as well as MLAs and federal representation. So that is true reconciliation action, I'll say, Hal, because it's getting together. I co-chair it with Charles Weaselhead, which is from the Blood Tribe, and being able to work together with our Indigenous partners has been phenomenal. And this table will, this intergovernmental health table will really put us to that next level as we continue to discuss the concerns around social issues and health issues that we have within Southern Alberta. So that was a really exciting thing that's only a couple months in, and we look forward to what that has to bring.
And the Blood Tribe Department of Health is also working with the Alpha House as well, correct? We're looking at
that
taking
is
it over.
correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lethbridge Mayor Blaine Hyggen, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Hal. Appreciate the time.